Lloyd Austin said Putin will not stop at Ukraine, but Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine and provide them with weapons it needs. And Ukraine's survival is on the line, and all of our security is on the line. The question is this: to what extent the West is willing to risk a new war with Russia?
Let's look at NATO. We know that NATO believes that any nation that wants to join NATO, except Russia, when Russia offered, they said no. But any nation other than Russia that wants to join NATO should be allowed in. Um, and that, that's reply. Russia's drawn a line that said no, Ukraine will never be allowed in. Georgia will never be allowed in. Um, so for Russia to win, it means that NATO's open door policy has been checkmate. Um, and that's a problem for NATO. Um, the other thing is that NATO is an extension of, it's the military power extension of the European Union, and the European Union's about a unified Europe. If Ukraine is defeated, as it will be, it's a defeat for both NATO and Europe, the European Union, and you're going to start to see deep fractures developing within NATO and the European Union, and leads to their collapse. So in many ways, the Europeans are right. A defeat in Ukraine will be a defeat for Europe and NATO. Of course it will be, because they defined the war as that way. But Russia's not going to move into Poland or move into NATO unless NATO attacks first. NATO's preparing to attack first. Emmanuel Macron is preparing to send thousands of troops into Ukraine. Basically the precursor for up to 60,000 non-NATO troops, meaning they come from NATO nations, but they're not going to call themselves NATO. But I can guarantee you this: if Russia stands back and allows these 2,000 troops to be deployed in non-frontline situations, there's the old analogy of the camel in the tent. If you let the camel stick his nose under the tent and you don't bash it away, the camel's coming in the tent and you can't stop it. If you let 2,000 French troops go into Ukraine and you don't bash them away, you'll end up with 60,000 European troops in Ukraine. And then NATO will transform that under an Article 4 excuse into a NATO protectorate. And now NATO has taken over Western Ukraine. Russia can't allow that to happen, or else they lose the conflict. So, we're talking about a situation where NATO's getting ready to attack Russia. And if this thing goes south, because the French troops will be killed. Understand that. Everybody needs to understand that. Every French soldier that goes in there will either be dead, wounded, or taken prisoner, or compelled to retreat. That's the only way it ends. There will be no French victory. There will be no NATO victory. But if France suffers that defeat, then they have to protect this force. They'll probably seek to reinforce this force, because France can't afford politically to retreat, so they have to double down on stupid. But if you can't protect it from within Ukraine, that means you'll have to project power from without Ukraine. Where's that power going to come from? From NATO. NATO just attacked Russia. Do you remember when Vladimir Putin said that we have no plans on attacking Poland unless Poland attacks us? We're creating the conditions where Poland is going to attack Russia. Romania is going to attack Russia. And don't be surprised when Russia counterattacks and we find ourselves in a nuclear conflict and the entire European continent is destroyed, because that's what will happen. That is a guaranteed outcome. There's no other outcome from that scenario. So that's the direction we're heading. If Europe wants to commit suicide, so be it. I mean, it's a shame. I sort of enjoyed going on vacation in Europe. I did like the city of Rome. I did like London. I did like Paris. I liked Brussels. They'll all be gone because of the stupidity of Emmanuel Macron.
There is an article in the Washington Post says that there are Ukrainian villages with no men left. And at the same time, we see the Polish general Raymond Adzerjak, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He says that the losses of the Ukrainian army in this conflict should be counted in millions, not hundreds of thousands. Do you think he's exaggerating in terms of the casualty on the part of Ukrainian, or he's reporting on the reality of the issue?
He's reporting on the reality of the issue. I've been saying this all along. People have been, no. I've been telling you. I've been counting the casualties. You're one of the people. Scott, that sounds a little high. How can you back it up? Military math. Today, I think it's accepted by most people that at least 500,000 Ukrainian soldiers have died. But when you count in the missing and stuff, that number could climb to 750,000. 750,000. Now, when you take a look at the battlefield statistics, you're looking at normally a dead to wounded ratio of at least 2 to 1, but probably 3 to 1. All right, so if we say 500,000 dead Ukrainians, that means a minimum of 1 million wounded Ukrainians or 1.5 million. That's 2 million right there. We say 750,000, we're getting up over 3 million. The Polish general is 100% correct. Millions of Ukrainians soldiers have been casualties in this war. Doesn't mean they're dead, but it means that millions have been taken off the battlefield. When Ukraine started this conflict, we were talking about, 250,000 active duty troops, another 700,000 reserves, territorialists, etc., to a force that was probably just under 1 million strong. 3 times that many have been taken off the battlefield. This is the reality of this war. This is the reality of this war.
Lindsey Graham is talking about changing the law in Ukraine to send younger people to this conflict. Do you think that would change the game in Ukraine? And the other question would be, who's going to take these people accountable for what they're doing right now, for putting out statement that doesn't fit with the reality on the battleground in Ukraine?
I don't know who's going to hold them to account. I'd like to believe that people with a moral conscience would. First of all, by ignoring them and not paying any attention to them, don't platform them, and second of all, to bring them to justice. And I'll let people decide how you bring them to justice. I mean, hopefully they have a system of justice they have confidence in, so that these people can be arrested and tried in accordance with the rule of law and punished accordingly. But we all know what happens when people lose confidence in the justice system. Vigilantism takes place. I'm not a big fan of it, but you put yourself at risk when you behave in a manner like Lindsey Graham and others. You create the need and necessity for vigilantism, because otherwise there will be no justice. He's a criminal, straight up criminal, and the vast majority of the people that articulate policy solutions that are similar to what he does are likewise criminal and must be held accountable for. Otherwise, they're just going to continue their criminal acts. And, even if only a certain percentage of their policy options are enacted, Lindsey Graham was a fervent supporter of this conflict. He's responsible for 3 million Ukrainian casualties. How does he be held accountable to that? How many life sentences must he serve? I just hope that Europe is listening to an American senator who's talking about Europe and talking gleefully about the need for Europe to sacrifice a generation of its manhood for an American senator's geopolitical wet dream. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
There is a speed bump on the front. There is a speed bump on the front.